there is only one way that you can do your best to ensure that the Liberal government does not take seats. There is only one way that you can make sure that the Liberal government does not take Canada into this communist Marxist nightmare that they keep promising they're going to do. There's been some polls, and everybody's losing their mind over the results of these polls. I'm here to try and make sense of it for you so that you can understand there's only one thing that you can do, or there's two things. First thing you can do is ignore the polls. We'll get to that. Many of you who've watched this channel know that I don't put a lot of stock in polling. I don't really talk about it very often. I don't do content on it. That's because I understand a poll from start to finish. I understand it from the inside. I know what its goals are. I know how they're put together. I know how they structure them. And I also know that they can be very easily manipulated based on the type of question. How you structure the question can often lead to, or how you structure the choices, because it's never an answer. It's always you see them on my channel all the time. I give you 4 choices because that's what YouTube allows for me. They used to have 5. They took 1 block out. Now they're down to 4. And I give you a swing from extreme one, extreme other, or somewhere in the center, which all polls, if you've ever think of it, even if it's how did you enjoy your Christmas shopping on Amazon, it's all a 1 to a 10, or it's a 1 to a 5, or it's a likely, most likely, not likely. And then they rarely give you an opportunity to explain yourself because they're only interested in that emotion, that swing. If they change the nature of the question, you may very well change the nature of your answer. It might move from a 3 to a 5. It might move from a 5 to a 10, depending on the nature of that question, the mood that you're in, how you're interpreting those words. All of those things are part of taking a survey. You don't see that. What you see is the question, the 1 to 5, the 1 to 10, whatever it may be. You click and you go on to the next one. And this is important because most of these polls are done online. So you ask yourself, well, how come if they're done online, nobody's ever asked me? That's a very good point. It's almost like there's a group of people who have already been pre-qualified to take these polls, that they fit and sit in a certain demographic based on how they shop, age, a whole bunch of things like that. That information then filters out and they say, well, this is the person's opinion that we're looking for. Were you to stand outside of a hockey game and ask the same questions, you might find the results to be completely different. Were you to stand outside of a college, but you don't do that. You look around and you say to yourself, well, let me find 1,000 or 1,500 people, depending on which polling company, but they typically go about 1,000 people. 40 million people in the country, they're asking 1,000. Let me establish that I'm not trying to slam on polling, because polling is known by another name for me. It's sampling. Now, sampling is a very good science. Polling, however, in the modern era, especially when it comes to political polls, has too much sway, too much movement in it to really be counted as anything concrete. For example, Biden was doing terrible. Kamala Harris says that I'm being appointed by the Democratic Party. The poll swung massively her way. She was going into the election night of the last American election, many points ahead. And yet she finished many points behind. And not only did she finish many points behind, but she finished behind in every demographic that they were considering, whether that be males, women, African American, Latin, every demographic she failed, she lost. Because there's not a lot of, it's hard to filter out the emotion. And if the polling company has a bias and they look at a certain person with a certain question and the way that they frame the question, all of a sudden the result is giving them what they're looking for, then they turn around and they try to terrify you with that result. Because what they're hoping to do, those individuals, what they're hoping to do is sway your vote. And that's because the survey that they're putting on was paid for by a person who has a bias. Who do you think? Do you think they're doing this for free? Somebody goes to them and say, hey, can you run me a poll? I'm looking for an answer here. Let's specifically speak to the Mark Carney thing right now. So Justin Trudeau says that he might resign next month, and the entire government and the media tries to distract Canadians from homelessness, housing issues, drug deaths, bad economy, inflation. You'll note that the mainstream, the corporate media is not talking about that anymore. They're just talking about this leadership race. And they're not even talking about the leadership race. They just keep talking about Mark Carney versus Pierre Poilievre. I'm going to speak first to the Mark Carney factor. You have a lot of people who were disillusioned with Justin Trudeau who are Liberal. When the Liberal Party gets upset, when the membership of the Liberal Party gets annoyed, they don't go to the Conservatives like they do in like the United States where there's only two parties. They go to the NDP. And so you saw the NDP numbers rising. You saw that it was 21% for the Liberal Party, and it was 19% for Jagmeet Singh, and he was chomping at the bit. He's going to be the leader of the official opposition. And perhaps if he'd taken the opportunity to derail the government last year, he might have had that presented to him. He might have won that, but he didn't. He messed up. He looked out only for himself, and as a result, he's probably going to be like it's going to be bad for the NDP in the upcoming election because he can no longer be trusted from the electoral standpoint. So we have these three people that are out in front. We have Karina Gould, which people that are under 35 like, and you have Chrystia Freeland, who people that are that don't like the establishment care for, and then you have Mark Carney, who tries to tell you that I'm not part of the establishment, while he turns around with his investments and with his billion-dollar company that probably owns stock in many of the media companies. And he has all of the established Liberal Party, all the cabinet members supporting him. So when you have all of the support of the establishment, you are not outside of the establishment. You are, in fact, part of the establishment. When you come to announce you're running for the Liberal Party and you refuse to allow Rebel News, True North, when you turn away 10 of the independent media and allow only the CBC, the CTV, and Global into your announcement, you are absolutely 100% established. You are not part of the fringe in any way, shape, or form. Let me get back to the point that I'm trying to make. There is only one way that you can do your best to ensure that the Liberal government does not take seats. There is only one way that you can make sure that the Liberal government does not take Canada into this communist Marxist nightmare that they keep promising they're going to do. And that is to vote. You have to get up, you have to go out, you have to vote. If you're in Ontario and you say to yourself, well, I just voted in the provincial election, well, too bad, you got to go vote again. You got to get up and you got to cast your vote. It won't matter what polls are asked, it won't matter any of that stuff. If you don't cast your vote, that will matter. If some person did a special question, mainstream polling, or asked a question of women under 20, between ages 21 and 25, what they think about Pierre Poilievre versus Mark Carney, and now all of a sudden Mark Carney's numbers are high, well, that could be an indication that they're trying to manipulate you. I mean, they've asked 1,000 people that tend to lean liberal, what they think of the two, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh no, everybody's gonna vote for liberal because of Mark Carney. Ask the same question of men over 40 and see what the results are. And that stuff is all important. That's all factored in. There are polls out there that will tell you the breakdown of the age groups that they asked and the genders of the people that they asked. There are others that will not, because they don't want you to understand that they're manipulating the results in a way that could benefit the person that's paying for the poll. But none of that will matter when you walk in and cast your vote the way that you want to vote. None of that will matter. There's still only one vote. They get one vote. You walk right in, you cast your vote, and when somebody on your way out on the exit poll says to you, hey, which way did you vote? You say, I would prefer not to discuss it with a person like you because I don't believe that you're going to do the right thing with that information. I believe that I will cast my vote and it's my business. And then you walk on your merry way. And they will say, oh, okay, sorry to bother you, because that's what they are trained to do, because they are people from human resources. They are not statistician. They're people who went through, those kind of deal with other people and pay attention to the body cues kind of training. The only statistician, mathematicians in the entire thing are probably going to be in the laptop of the guy that paid for the poll. So the only thing that you can do to do your best to make sure that Canada goes the direction that you want it to do is to vote. As a culture, Canada needs to stop telling ourselves that a 25-30% turnout is good enough. One of the things that got Donald Trump where he is that the turnout was through the roof. And what was a real big turnout was men over 35 casting a vote. Because men have a tendency to tell themselves, I go to work, I go home, the rest of it can just fall off the edge of the earth. Unfortunately for you, that's no longer the case. Politics has decided to invade your quiet little life. They want you to stop running that truck. They want you to start living in a little condominium in downtown Toronto that will be, as soon as you look out your window, it'll be just another condominium, miles after miles of condominiums. They don't want you to have the independence that you relish. And the only way that you can ensure in your mind that that life is going to continue, that the dollar is going to turn around and be corrected, is to get up off your ass and go cast your vote. No amount of polls, no amount of questions asked on the internet can change that. That's the only inoculation that I can offer you. Now, I understand that it makes you nervous, and the best way that you can do that is to say to yourself, well, I did my best. I cast my vote. I tried my hardest to make sure that I was along with the voices of everyone else asking for a common sense Canada. Mark Carney, Chrystia Freeland, Jagmeet Singh, Elizabeth May, none of them can make you vote for them. Only you can get up and cast your vote. And where you cast your vote, how you cast your vote, when you cast your vote, might be laid out by the government, by the regulatory bodies that look after that. But what vote you cast, that's all up to you. That's the beauty of the democratic system. And if you don't get up and cast your vote, if you don't go out and say, I voted and who I voted for is my business, but I cast my vote. If you don't do that, then you don't have the right to complain. You have to accept the fact. Not only do you have to accept it, you can't complain about it. You can't tell yourself that there's something wrong with it, that you cannot in any way, shape, or form, because you didn't participate. And so if you didn't participate, you don't have the right to complain about it. Now, if you're someone who's not allowed to participate, then yeah, okay, I get it. But if you're permitted to cast a vote and you choose not to because you tell yourself that you're way too cool, or because the system doesn't care about you, or any of the 150 flimsy little reasons that people say because they can't take 20 minutes to drive to a local high school, stand in line for a few minutes, give their name and ID, and then cast a vote. I mean, the whole operation might take you 30 minutes. Press pause on the TV. It'll still be there when you get back. All right. I hope I cleared this up for you, because I hear everybody losing their minds and getting terrified by these polls. And there are some pollsters out there, like, 3380 is pretty good with looking after, trying to keep it all straight. But if you were to look deeply into that, you would see that some of them are extreme and some of them are constant. But many of the ones that are extreme are not asking the question of, do you think the Liberal Party will solve the housing crisis? Do you think the Liberal Party can turn around the destruction of the last 10 years? Can the Liberal Party rein in the debt that they put us in? Can the Liberal Party stop the exodus of steel and of mining corporations? Can the Liberal Party reverse the damage of these battery factories? They're not asking him any of that question. Anyway, I'm going to wrap here. I want to thank you for listening. I'll talk to you next time.